Hey guys, it's Kira here, and I actually just finished the book that's coming out tomorrow, September 21st, Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I have to say, that this was really heartwarming. So I will preface this by saying that there is a trigger warning for death, dying, suicide, murder, discussions of suicide, and murder. We have our main character, Wallace Price, who is this just awful human being. He's a lawyer. It's one of those characters that you just love to hate. He's just not a good person. The book starts off with him firing somebody that has just finished praising how wonderful of a person he was. And the first chapter, within the first chapter, we find out that 3 days later, after he fired this woman, he died. He died alone, and it was a very quick and very severe heart attack. It's only to end up at his funeral and see his partners, who partner with him at the law firm, say how much of an asshole he is. He's actually flabbergasted by this because he thought he was a good guy. He thought that, he did everything he was supposed to do. He thought he was living life because he worked very hard. He was very successful. So he thought he was doing everything that he was supposed to do and was very successful with it just by going through the motions. The whole funeral scene actually kind of reminded me a little bit of that part Ebenezer Scrooge where he meets the ghost of Christmas future, and they show him kind of a glimpse of what his life is going to be like if he continues on this path, except this isn't a glimpse, this is the real thing. Wallace Price, physically, the description that they gave said that he was very tall, very lanky, and had very cut cheekbones. I always think, and they describe it that way, I always think that people who have those kind of cut cheekbones, I always think Tim Burton characters. At the beginning of this book, we meet another character, May. She's Asian, and she is this very wonderful pile of just fun, and she is also a Reaper. She comes and she finds Wallace, and she said, "Hey, I'm your Reaper. I'm here to take you to your way station." So she takes Wallace to his way station, and that's where they meet Hugo. Hugo is the ferryman. He is the one who's supposed to be helping Wallace kind of deal with being dead. And it is a very hard thing because Wallace is outraged. He wants to speak to their manager and their supervisor to figure out how he can undead himself. Karen, pick up in aisle 3. Being dead, Wallace cannot leave the tea shop that he was taken to, which is Hugo's house. And Hugo keeps trying to coax him to be a little less angry, be a little bit more human. It's okay not to go through the motions. He doesn't need to do that anymore. And this is where it starts to get kind of interesting because Wallace doesn't really seem like he actually starts to live his life, ironically enough, until after he dies. By the way, Hugo is depicted as black, and his grandfather, Nelson, is also black, and he is this crotchety old man, but he's just fun about it. That Wallace cannot leave, nobody can hear him that comes into the tea shop but Hugo and May, and Nelson, of course, because he's dead. We also have a ghost dog named Apollo, and he is just this barrel of sunshine throughout this whole thing. And you have the happy dog just kind of all over the place licking people that don't want to be licked. Wallace gets kind of grossed out about it, but we love to see it because it's just a happy pet that's just kind of all throughout the book, random, in places, and everywhere. It's just fun. Now, throughout all of this, we do have some mystery, with Hugo and his past. There was another Reaper that was working with him before May, and it was not a good relationship. It wasn't healthy, and that Reaper was not a good Reaper. They did not take very good care of the people that were dying because death is a really hard thing to stomach, and they really emphasize that in this book, that even though Hugo does the best he can with it, even though he puts on a happy face and tries to do everything he needs to do, he is not perfect. He's only human, and he's just trying to get through it just like everybody else. But he's also trying to help people get through it themselves, and he's also trying to deal with his emotions. This book really kind of emphasizes once again, what's something that TJ Klune has always been famous for, is the found family trope. The found family trope is such a normal kind of thing throughout all of his books, and he is just constantly, I do mean constantly, kind of immersing himself in the found family, where you didn't belong anywhere before and this is the one place you can find to belong. One of the reasons why I always love his books is because I always find a sense of kinship in them, and I always find a sense of belonging because I feel it radiating through every page that we have this family. And not to mention like the fact that there is all of this humor. Nelson, Hugo's grandfather, is making like all these death jokes, especially like right at the beginning, like when Wallace is still super grumpy. Nelson says things like, "What's the ghost's favorite fruit?" "Blueberries." "What kind of street does a ghost live on?" "A dead end." Wah, 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 wah. It's those kind of jokes. But we also have like a lot of like warm-heartedness, and we get to like really like dig through like and see Hugo more and more of his real self coming through and him trying to kind of deal like with everything. May is just this bundle of happiness. Like, she has such a good positive attitude. Of course, death is never an easy thing to deal with, but May deals with it so well, and she is just a light presence in this book. I have to say, like, though, in comparison like to some of his other previous books, this one does like really kind of jerk on the emotions, and they kind of like leave you like in suspense, like especially like the last 20% of the book, trying to figure out like whether or not like things are going to work out okay, and like whether or not like they're going to be happy. And it's just such a struggle trying to figure out like whether or not like things are going to end up the way you hope that they will. But this is definitely like another like one of his books that I thought was like really good. Now, granted, this is not House on the Cerulean Sea. Like, I still do not feel like the same kind of love for this book that I did for that one. So I ended up rating this a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought this was really good. I thought it was like really like good smooth progression like most of his books normally are. I thought it was like really like, you know, very interesting. I do like the fact too like that we got kind of like a fleshed out view of like what it's like to be a Reaper and what it's like to know that whether or not you are living or dead. Death is not an easy topic for anyone, especially your own. There is also like this character like that kind of floats around in this book. His name is Cameron. I had mentioned like that there was a bad relationship that Hugo had with the previous Reaper. And this guy, Cameron, he is soulless. He was a ghost that came to Hugo. He actually decided to break free and go out on his own because he's not supposed to be leaving the tea shop, but he does, and the cord allows like them to be grounded into the world between him and Hugo, because Hugo is the ferryman, snaps and he loses humanity, or so they think. There's a lot to that character also, and I feel like that whole like losing your humanity thing as a ghost is such a huge kind of conversation in and of itself. I do think this book is really interesting. I thought it was really good. I have not purchased this yet, but this was a book that NetGalley had approved me for, an ARC, and I really appreciate NetGalley for doing so because this was definitely like one of my most anticipated reads of 2021. I really like the sexuality rep in here. We have Wallace, who's actually bisexual, and then we have Hugo, who is queer. And I love the fact that we have like all of like this going back and forth, and like there's some angst in this, and once again just a wonderful, beautiful romance that was just something like that I loved seeing, because I love the fact that we have such a slow progression into these romances that he writes, and I love that we have like we see the details kind of coming together very slowly. And it's just the evolution of that relationship was also very beautiful. These are just a few of my thoughts for Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I do recommend it. I think it was a very good story. It was very heartwarming. It's definitely like just what I needed. It seems like when I'm sad and lonely, like these are the books like that kind of help me get through that time. They give me so much to think about, so many like warm, fuzzy feelings because like of the found families and stuff like that. And honestly, like I just like if I'm looking for like a read like that kind of calms my anxiety and makes me, you know, like a little bit happier, these books really do that for me. And I really love the fact that he writes about these wonderful, heartwarming characters that have such a great character development and an evolution to them, and you just kind of like learn so much about them as you go. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this video, hit the like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell icon if you guys want to receive emails every single time I post. I'm also on Amazon, Goodreads, Instagram, and Twitter, and I have a TikTok. Those links are linked in the description below, and I will see you guys again very soon.